Rather lads, welcome back to Cossy podcast. My name is Cossy. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in all parts of the world. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to a brand new video. So we have a problem at Arsenal. One, we have a very good player that we do not know where he plays, and number two, we actually do not know what he does. That player is Kai Havertz. In this video, I've done my research and I'm going to be diving into what exactly Kai Havertz does, what he provides Arsenal with, why we've signed him, and why you should stop and freeze for a second and ask yourself, do you actually understand the roles that Mikel Arteta has created at Arsenal before you judge the signing of Kai Havertz? Now, last season we played predominantly with a single pivot, which was more of Thomas Partey, with of course Alexander Zinchenko inverting in midfield. That meant that we had two players sitting into the pivot, but without Alexander Zinchenko, it was a single pivot. We played with two number 8s or with two attacking midfielders. That was Martin Odegaard, who played a little bit further forward, and Granit Xhaka, who oscillated between defense and attack. That is where Kai Havertz comes into the system. We have signed a player for a role. We've not signed Kai Havertz for what he has done at Chelsea. We've not signed Kai Havertz for what he's going to do for any other club, for Germany, for what. We've signed him particularly for his role, and that role is where Granit Xhaka has been playing. So in this video, we're going to be diving into everything you need to know about where Kai Havertz plays, what he does, and why you're getting it wrong absolutely about him. So the first thing I wanted us to talk about is the fact that he goes into spaces, and the fact that there is a huge need for us not to have such a player. So when you look at that clip, it comes from the German Bundesliga YouTube channel. They were analyzing the movements of Kai Havertz, and that is the best I could actually pick out. So this is a very good example of where Granit Xhaka was playing last season. That's a very good example of what Granit Xhaka was doing, and particularly what he was supposed to do in the Arsenal side last season. So, because you played with two number 8s in Odegaard and Xhaka, you don't ask them to do the same role. You don't ask them to do the same thing. Whereas Martin Odegaard dropped a little bit deep at times to pick up the ball, but much of his work was in the final third trying to create, and he was a creator, and he was arriving in the penalty area onto those rebounds, onto those cutbacks, brought in by Granit Xhaka. Xhaka's role was a little bit different. He played a little bit further forward. He played as part of the attacking line, and that's why we saw in the Wolverhampton Wanderers game, in the Southampton game, in the Leicester City game, he got goals, but those goals are really played or scored by a player like Mesut Ozil, a player who literally is your number 10. So Xhaka, we could say, was our number 10 last season. He wasn't the box-to-box guy. He wasn't the guy that was predominantly defending like he was used to do, like we used to see him do in his first 7 seasons or 6 seasons at Arsenal. Actually, he picked up a very different role, and that role is that Kai Havertz doing it very well there. Actually, if I could play that clip a little bit further, I can't because of copyright. He goes on to finish that move, but that is what he's going to do at Arsenal, and that is what he's going to do in the new system. When we are on the attack, we will need that guy that arrives a little bit late in the penalty area. We will need that guy that just occupies spaces, sniffs out spaces in the penalty area, and finishes. That is Kai Havertz. And of course, if you want an in-depth analysis on that, how he goes into space, I'm going to recommend 2 channels. One is Statman Dev Clips, where he's actually talked about very well about the way he goes into spaces and the way he actually utilizes and investigates the space, just like Thomas Muller at Bayern Munich. The other channel is, of course, T4IRL. They've also done a very good job in identifying the strength of Kai Havertz, which is ghosting and understanding and finding spaces and then finishing off moves at the end. The next one we have to talk about as we talk about Kai Havertz and where he's going to fit in at Arsenal is definitely the numbers he's putting in as a forward. And I think there is a misconception here. There is we have been clouded between he's a bad signing and he cannot perform. These are two very different things. The fact that we don't want him as a signing, the fact that Arsenal fans don't want him as a signing, is very different from he cannot perform. So these are his numbers as an attacking midfielder. You look at his passes into the final third. 80% of his touches are entering the final third, and is averaging 1.72 touches into the final third. Touches in the opposition penalty area, 84% still, 6.2 touches in the penalty area of the opposition. And this is where Mikel Arteta has always talked about boxes. He's always talked about the importance of both boxes, that our box is very important because that is where you defend. That is where you make sure that you don't concede. That is where the team actually becomes so good at keeping clean sheets and making sure that you can win a game 1-0, 2-1, 3-2, and things like that. But then he's also talked about the opposition box. Both boxes are very important. So what we saw with Granit Xhaka last season is he is a player who was adapting to a new role, but to be honest, that was not comfortable for him. Yes, there were times where he was very good. Wolverhampton Wanderers at home, the last game of the season, he was phenomenal. He was very, very good. 3 chances. Should have scored a hat-trick in that game, like on the bounce in the first half. Leicester City in the, I think that was the first game of the campaign, where he literally understands space, positions himself very well, and the ball drops to him and he finishes into the back of the net. Southampton 1-1, that was at the away. Was it away? Was it at home? The first game 1-1, where Granit Xhaka actually scored the first goal for us. You can see the ball is worked towards Saka, then Saka crosses the back into the middle of the box, and who is arriving? It is Granit Xhaka. So those touches in the penalty area of the opposition, we will need those touches. We will need a player who is so good at, understanding where to stand and when to arrive, and that is Kai Havertz. But of course, in the other statistics you need to talk about for him as a player, are the progressive passes. He's not a player that resembles Martin Odegaard. He's actually the opposite of Martin Odegaard. So the difference between Martin and Kai is Martin loves to drop deep, pick up the ball, manage play, dictate the tempo of the game, and decide for the team when to go forward, when to slow down, and when to pick up the pace. Kai Havertz is as simple as I don't know which other player to compare him to. I don't remember a player that is as simple as Kai Havertz playing for Arsenal. Like probably Olivier Giroud. Actually, is as simple as Olivier Giroud. I mean, he just comes to my mind and is the perfect example. Of course, not the best example because Olivier Giroud, again, was not one of the biggest strikers in the Premier League. But the similarities between Kai Havertz and Olivier Giroud is one, link-up play and simplicity. You cannot have two players, Cazorla and Odegaard, or which other player that really loves to be on the ball. You can't have both of them in midfield. They will collide. There will be a collision. So you need some player or someone who's very, very good at understanding space. So when Odegaard is deep, Kai Havertz will be high up the pitch. When Odegaard is high up the pitch, Kai Havertz will drop into those deeper midfield areas. But the simplicity with this game is he will pick up the ball, he will drop a little bit deep, probably not very deep, right? Probably just deep enough. So he will drop, he will just facilitate play, like link up. He can receive the ball with his back facing the opposition goal, and then he will lay it off for a Declan Rice, for a Martin Odegaard, and then we can beat a line of pressure. And that's why you're looking at there. That's what you're looking at there in his statistics. That his progressive passes are absolutely very, very nice. Tackles plus interceptions. He's also one of the best players in his position. 1.44 per 90. That is 75% of the time. So if he's doing very well in terms of tackling, progressive passes, progressive carries, is he a bad player then? He is not a bad player. But also to talk about one of the weaknesses that he has to work on, and this again, if you want to find the best of this information, it is on the 442 Football channel. You will find the best of Kai Havertz's strength and weakness. Now, the key weakness he has as a player is finishing. So you look at his stats in terms of finishing, goals plus assists, 0.2 per 90. He's standing in the 25th percentile. Like, he's really, really low in that category. And if we were to compare him to Thomas Muller, if we are to compare him to some of the Ghost Riders, right? I'll call them Ghost Riders just for purposes of this channel. those players that find space and find the back of the net, he actually needs to massively, upgrade on that. But of course, Mikel Arteta can help him do that. And I think Statman Dev puts it very well on his channel, the Statman Dev clips. He says that Kai Havertz is finishing really well with his left foot, but he's massively underperforming his XG on the right foot and the headers. We know he's 6'2" tall, right? And that is one of the characteristics that the German Bundesliga were actually pointing out on their channel when they talked about him. He's 6 foot tall, so he's going to help Arsenal in the aerial duels. He's one of the players that are actually winning up to 62% of the headers they are going for. 62% of the headers. It means that if you hang the ball up there in the air, he will actually win it. But he doesn't score them. So that is where Mikel Arteta comes in, and that is where the manager has to come in and help the player, in my opinion. But of course, the third thing we need to talk about when we talk about Kai Havertz is this formation here. Now, this was actually highlighted by Statman Dev on his channel, the Statman Dev clips, and this is what Bayer Leverkusen played like when they played with Kai Havertz. So with the green arrow, you're looking at Kai Havertz right there. On the right-hand side, you have an inverted winger, a left-footed inverted winger trying to hold the width, and you can see up there on the pitch there is your Julian Brandt. So down here you have not Eric Bailey really, but you have Leon Bailey. Up there you have Julian Brandt, you have Kai Havertz in midfield, and then you have the striker up top. I think by that time it was Kevin Volland. So what this actually represents is nothing else but what Arsenal looked like in attack last season. Down this right-hand side is Bukayo Saka. Up there on the left-hand side is Gabriel Martinelli. You have Kai Havertz and Martin Odegaard, where we had Odegaard and Xhaka in midfield, and up top was Gabriel Jesus. And you can see that's very, very similar to what we were actually playing like, because the striker is not high up the pitch, but it's also dropping just like Gabriel Jesus to facilitate play. So Kai Havertz is literally coming in to hold our system. He's coming in to give us exactly what we were getting from Granit Xhaka, but probably better in terms of going forward. So how exactly do we set up with him? Now, before we get into the setup, I would love to point out a few things, one or two things. One is, and this was highlighted by the 442 Football channel. Again, you can watch the video on Kai Havertz. It's the headers. Last season, Arsenal scored 14 goals out of headers, and most of those goals were actually scored from set pieces. What that tells you is that we are not hanging the ball into the penalty area enough, because our players are actually short and they don't fancy a header. There's no reason you would hang the ball for Saka, for Martinelli. Martinelli, of course, at times he goes up for the headers, but you understand what I'm talking about. And Gabriel Jesus. Those are not players that really love to score with their heads. Like, I will count for you. Against Brentford, away, Granit Xhaka hung the ball up for Gabriel Jesus, and he scored with his header. Gabriel Jesus scored at the back post with his header against Leicester City, and he also scored with his head against Liverpool away. 3 goals as headers. Okay. Bukayo Saka, did he score a header last campaign? Someone remind me. Someone really do remind me if Saka scored a header last campaign. Gabriel Martinelli scored a header when we played Crystal Palace on the opening day of the season. He might have scored one more, but I really struggle to find it. So he's going to provide another dimension. He's going to provide another way to score goals. When we hang that ball into the penalty area, we will have a taller player who will actually be less marked as compared to Saliba, Gabriel, and Benjamin White. So still, you have enough reasons to trust in the signing of Kai Havertz. Actually, this is a statistic that I didn't know about. He scored 19 goals for Chelsea. 9 of those goals were headers. 9. Almost half of the goals he scored for Chelsea have been headers. So maybe Arsenal have actually looked at the profile of the player more than we have done. So then how does it look like? How will it look like when we play with Kai Havertz? We know that Saka loves to hold the width right on the right-hand side. And with that, Gabriel Martinelli will always hold the width right on the left-hand side. Gabriel Jesus is very good at dropping into this area here to help out with picking up the ball, but also distributing it in these areas where Odegaard will be arriving and where Kai Havertz will be arriving. So we are predominantly going to play an attacking 5. That is not going to change, with Kai Havertz either playing in this pocket of space or right about here. And of course, Odegaard right here where he's played much of the time. This is very, very similar to what we have seen in this picture here. And I want to share it here, right? I want to share it with you. This is very similar to what we've seen here. So Kai Havertz is dropping a little bit deep. He's interchanging spaces, passes with a striker, and he eventually runs on. I'm going to play this just a little bit so that it plays on, right? So you're going to look at I want you to look at the shifting of that pattern. I want you to look at the way the pattern shifts when Kai Havertz and that front 5 of Bayer Leverkusen are actually playing. He's a player that literally is going to facilitate the way you move. He's a player that is really literally going to facilitate the way you play, but he's not a player that's going to be your Messi Ozil. So as you can see here, the ball has been is being worked out into the wide areas. And you look at Kai Havertz here, he's now looking to move into this space right in the penalty area. And how does the move end? This is, I think this is Bailey is trying to work the ball into the penalty area, like we will see just a little bit. Exactly. So the wide forward works the ball into the penalty area. And guess who is there to finish? It is your boy, Kai Havertz. Kai Havertz has already worked his way into the penalty area. That is what we're going to see much of the time when he plays for Arsenal. Because Saka is so good at creating, because Odegaard is so good at creating, and because Gabriel Jesus is so good at ghosting from this space and working himself off to the left or off to the right, we will see a lot of Kai Havertz arriving here. Now, there are points that I will agree with Arsenal fans about, and these are the following. 1, Kai Havertz really needs to work, because Emile Smith-Rowe is a good player, but he doesn't have all the it doesn't have all the nutrients yet to play in that position like Xhaka did last campaign, like Kai Havertz has always done on his best day. But then also, Kai Havertz needs to massively upgrade on his XG. You cannot have an XG of 11.4 and you score 7. Like, that is a massive drift off. That is a massive underperformance. And I think Arsenal fans are really right to be worried about such numbers, right? So even if I've given you the benefit of the doubt, Kai, you need to perform as quickly as possible, because that role is very, very crucial to Arsenal in terms of scoring goals and in terms of adding a little bit of consistency, pressure, and predictability to our side.